quite so chilly here. Hope it's not where you are. Got a really good show for you tonight. One of the best press conferences the Florida coach has had in a long time that took place in Gainesville, and Coach Sumrall answered pretty much everything they threw at him. It was impressive to me. I'll be anxious to talk to people who were there, like Edgar Thompson, who will join the program in just a second, and he will give us his thoughts on it. I know this much. I know there are a lot of people who are very excited about what they heard. And online, you can tell. I like to gauge sometimes what these people say and try to get an idea. And they were really jacked up and ready to play. And I know it's just first blush enthusiasm and, as they call it, speed dating and all that. But it was impressive to me. And he answered all the questions and revealed a good bit of stuff. So we'll have Edgar in about 2 seconds, and we're going to be joined later by Alec Pete Wilbur, who's always got her takes on things. And Tony Barnhart will join us to talk about some changes around the league tonight, a little breaking news, which we'll talk about. Looks like Khalil Jackson got a medical hardship case, another Florida player back. I think that's a good thing. I think I don't think you can have too many receivers. And Khalil, although he wasn't a burner, was a guy I thought could catch the ball quite well. Let's see what this guy thinks. He follows it a lot closer than I do. Good evening from the Orlando Sentinel, Edgar Thompson. Hi, Edgar.
How you doing, buddy?
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Of course.
I know it was a long day today for you, and I heard your questions, and I just tried to get into the groove of listening to what I heard, and I learned quite a few things myself, but then did you learn a lot today? That's the question.
Oh, sure. Well, like you said, it was one of the better press conferences by a Florida coach in a while. Coach Sumrall met with us during halftime of the Auburn game, in fact, for 9 minutes. And I joked with someone in the UF hierarchy, let's say, that we got more in 9 minutes out of him than we get out of Billy in a week. And he said,
no doubt about it.
He's like, he said, come on, Edgar, you're being very generous. So, yeah, he filled the notebook today. I mean, there are many things we can touch on. You lead me because.
Okay, I've got a few, and you jump in any time. I just want to remind folks that the news was Khalil Jackson got a medical hardship, got a 7th season. He's coming back. He hasn't played now since 2024. Had a knee injury. So glad for him. Keeps the legend, the legacy, Jackson legacy going. And you can always use a good receiver. He's a senior, got some experience. And then Joey Aguilar granted a temporary restraining order against the NCAA rules. He filed a lawsuit this week to appear for a 6-year eligibility. I guess is what we're going to be seeing. Let's not waste a lot of time on that and all the litigious things. Let's talk about, among the things I heard, and I'll just jump right into it. I was kind of excited to hear the news, and he'll be using quite a few Ford wide receivers on the field.
Well, he definitely mentioned 10 personnel, but he also mentioned, hey, if we have excellent tight ends, we'll play 12. I mean, it's a big thing with Buster Faulkner, and I definitely want to talk about the 2 coordinators that we spoke with today because I had a lot of thoughts on them too.
Okay.
I mean, I have some stuff I can run through fast on each guy.
Well, you go ahead. Let's let
No. But Buster Faulkner, who is one of the best coordinator hires in the country, I would argue, this offseason, and certainly the kind of the show pony of this new staff at this point, will adapt to his personnel. But yes, they want to go vertical. They want to, challenge defenses down the field with multiple receivers, and that was not something that Billy Napier did often, if at all. But yeah, that was exciting for sure. He touched on a bunch of players, one of whom, Eric Singleton, he gushed about, and both of them did. I think this guy's just one of those, get it to guys, as they say, but also can take the top off the defense. Very fast. They're trying to work on his change of direction a little bit, Coach Sumrall allowed, and because he thinks that can make him even more explosive and effective. So He did talk about other players. I mean, Pryor, the new running back, is it Evan? He really was high on him. Very explosive guy. I mean, Jaden Baugh is going to be the kind of the bell cow, but you don't want to wear him out either. He said Evan Pryor can roll, great speed. He was a top, 7. I think he was 7 coming out in his class. Went to Ohio State. Had some injuries. Was kind of a, not a third down back, but a change of pace, I guess, at Cincinnati. He talked about Emmanuel. It's Oya.
Don't ask me.
Oyabado, something. I keep butchering his dang name, and I have it in front of me all the time, and I still butcher it. But he is 6'6", 303, can bend, but he's raw. But he has tremendous upside. He singled out Bailey Stockton, the Georgia Tech
receiver,
worker. Like, right now, that's what they're doing. They're just working. They're just grinding. They're just trying to get, a culture, create a work ethic and all that. He did single out one of the freshmen, Carr, the lineman.
Kid Vocala.
Yeah, he singled him out of all the freshmen and of all the linemen. He singled him out as a guy who was really setting the tone in the weight room. So, which is where a lot of the work's being done with Rusty Witt. He'll speak on Friday. Yeah. And he talked a good bit about Rusty Witt and his decision to bring him in. He said he got to Troy. He'd been there 18 months, Rusty Witt.
Was going to fire him, he said.
I was going to fire him. And I talked to him a couple of times. Like, I don't know if that'll be a good move. And he said, I wouldn't be here without Rusty Witt kind of instilling the toughness. These guys are about toughness and aggression and your mentality as much as your talent.
So, I looked his comments about the Green Beret. He was 20. He was 33 when he decided to become a Green Beret. And he says most people think it's too late when you're 23. Yeah. And how impressed he was with this guy, how he embraced it. And the other part of that, probably for jumping in, but the things I learned, like the philosophy and all the structure and discipline, traced back to West Point and Jeff Monken, where they got it from. So that was interesting, I thought.
Sure.
Yeah. And anyway, so I'm not going to interrupt you. I just said,
no, buddy, please do. It's your show. But I was just listing off a few of the highlights.
No, that's good. I like that. I just wanted to say that to little nuances, things that you learn about, you can tell in their tone of voice. Faulkner obviously had his mind on his quarterback a long time ago. He talked about recruiting the Georgia and whatever, how much they like that guy. And they feel really confident about the 2 QBs they got in that room. They had no problem saying it's a wide open competition. I just think everything about it, and I'll say probably the most impressive thing was when he talked about how much he likes the job and welcomes the challenge of the transfer portal and all those things that come with it, and excited to be there. He's not, you can tell he's not a BSer. He really loves he thrives in all that chaos. And that's why I think right now he was the perfect fit for this job.
My story coming out of their headline was, you can whine or you can adapt. And he rebuilds the program in a new era.
That's
and, with the portal and 7-figure NIL deals, all these legal loopholes, he's like, hey, look, this is how it is. He's trying to keep pace. I asked him at Darian Mensah, who played for him at Tulane and is not Miami, third school, left Duke for Coral Gables. And he said, look, you got a big bag, and I'm not mad about it. I'm happy about it. He is not going to hate the player. The game, he might not love it the way it is, but it is what it is, and he's going to play by the rules, so to speak. But he also talked about how there are no rules and tampering abounds, and every player on this team was tampered with at some point, potentially.
He said he didn't do it, though.
He says he didn't do it, but then he mentioned back channels and all these things, because agents and family members and all these people are constantly taking the temperature of various programs to see if they can improve their lot or their playing time. I mean, this isn't always just about money. I mean, money is the driving force these days, but some of these guys, want better coaching, a chance to win a championship or compete for one, or, get on an SEC stage, for example, that they wouldn't, like a guy like Emmanuel A, we'll just call him for purposes of the program tonight.
Yeah, okay. Hey, what was the most impressive thing? Tell me the 2 or 3 most impressive things. I mentioned the 4 wides. I know that's something I'm not going to live on, but Shane and I have talked about that a lot. We wanted to
yeah.
every year. Also, his attempt at humor was pretty good when asked about these endless contracts, these endless careers. These guys are playing 8, 9, 10 years, whatever. And he said he is filing a temporary restraining order for Tim Tebow to come back.
Yeah, that was funny. I almost brought that up when you brought something up earlier. I almost jumped in with that. But yeah, that was a good line. He's clever and he's comfortable, and he's not just going to open his soul to us, and probably like most coaches won't be revealing injuries and stuff, unless it's like season ending or whatever. That's fine. I can live with that. But I don't think this guy's going to shy away from a question. And he's, very comfortable in his own skin, and he's very intense. And, he just touched on many things that should have, fans, listeners excited. But, this is just the earliest embryonic stages of this program, and they're trying to build, cohesion and culture and all these things. Like he was talking about, I'm trying to find it, but he was talking about, some general or whatever. Where was that?
The book he read. I missed that book. There's a book he read, and some general. Maybe Allie knows. Well, she listens pretty close. But I just kind of think it's a beat writer's dream. Something go bam, 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 and gives you all the stuff like this. He filled your notebook up for a couple of weeks, dude.
Yeah, he did. And then the coordinators, followed. And, Brad White, by the time you get to a third coach, you're kind of like, you're getting a little fatigued because you've already listened to, 60 minutes of that. And then Brad White he was impressive, or more than either of them.
Well, you said you wanted to talk about them. Go ahead. We'll bring Allie in. You go ahead and talk about the coordinators.
He's incredible.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
I asked a special teams question for you today.
You did? I cannot wait to hear about this. That makes me so happy.
You didn't listen?
I heard it.
It's been an insane day kid-wise today, so I haven't gotten to. So tell me all about it.
We're going to coach you up.
More kids will do that. What do you call them? Bipolar something on your Twitter feed? It's funny.
Bipolar dictators. I've actually got people messaging me telling me I shouldn't say that about my children, that it's very mean.
Oh, it's probably very accurate. So Buster Faulkner, a few things about him I liked. He described his kind of philosophy. He said in high school, Parkview up in Atlanta, where I think he won a state title, it was like 3 yards in a cloud of dust. He gets to Valdosta State, and it's air raid. So he said his philosophy already was being shaped by two totally, the juxtaposition of those two kind of schemes and approaches. And that kind of gave him the sense that you kind of have to adapt. And then he got to Middle Tennessee State, and he mentioned a guy who's a coach at Tennessee now who really taught him how to run the football at this level. So that was one I liked. He talked about his playing days. He gets to the podium. This guy was a really good college quarterback at his level. He's like 5'10", maybe. He's not close to 6 feet.
He looks bigger.
No, 44 touchdown passes he threw, but he said I threw it kind of side to side, not down the field, but which was, self-effacing. But he did, so he was a real, I've talked to a couple people in his background. I'm going to write a bigger story on him for Saturday. And they just said this guy is just a ruthless competitor, and people doubted him, and he doesn't, he will rise to the challenge. He said he watched Steve Spurrier from afar and loved him as a kid. He's the kind of, someone told me he'll hang 100 on you and leave you in the dust if he can. So fans are going to eat that up, and he's going to have some real talent and skill players. And he talked about it, the way he uses receivers is not just going to be traditional. It kind of reminds me, remember when Urban Meyer got here and he had come from that Utah team, and those two receivers, Paris Warren and there was another, had combined for like 39 touchdowns, two guys. And there were a lot of running touchdowns in that, end arounds and things like that. This guy's going to do stuff with receivers that isn't going to just be what you expect. So I like that about him. And then Brad White was funny. He said it took him 30 seconds to agree to come here.
Yeah.
And he said only because he had to ask the boss, his wife, basically. It would have been 5 seconds otherwise. And he is all about he was a productive player at Wake Forest, but a limited player. And so he's all about, as I said a little bit ago before Allie came on, mentality is as important as anything to him, to play defense. He's like, you can have all the physical tools and look great in shorts and stuff, but it's when you get the pads on. And it's, he said Miles Graham's the kind of player who has both the mentality and the ability. And he said he's going to really unleash him more and let him go downhill more than he did in the former scheme, where he was asked to cover quite a bit and exposed a couple of times doing that. But I don't think they're going to ask him to do that a ton. I mean, you need to be able to do that. But and the last thing I'd say, he's very fluid with the depth chart. He talked about carrying a pencil and a pen. So you're going to be playing each week, practicing each week to get on the field and continually having to prove yourself day in and day out. That's a real philosophy of all the good coaches that you come across. This isn't, play the guy because, you feel like you owe him something, or you're giving guys a chance that haven't really earned it. So I could speak more, but we'll let Allie, that was like 5 minutes straight. So
go ahead. Now jump in there. Any questions that you want to ask that you read?
I want to know the special teams question, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Well, I did ask him about special teams and I brought up Urban because this guy's a real Urban guy.
Yeah.
He and Urban speak a lot. And I point, the game has changed, and you might be able to explain this to listeners because you would know. It was easier to block kicks back then. UF blocked 17 kicks, those two national championship teams combined. But he said, look, other than the coordinators and the line coaches, everyone is all hands on deck for special teams because he will be heavily involved because when I'm involved, he's saying about himself, when I'm in the weight room, when I'm on the special teams,
he lives for the team.
Then it means something. Players look at it and go, this means something if the coach is this heavily involved in it. So he plans to be front and center in every aspect of this program, but special teams is important to him.
Did he say, Edgar, he also coached special teams someplace?
He did coach special teams.
It wasn't Ole Miss or someplace. Troy, I forget where it was, but he did. So he has a background. Allie, go ahead. Have at it. I know you have questions.
Oh, well, I love to hear that about special teams because I do think that and I hate to keep pointing back to the previous staff because that just doesn't seem fair. Like we're moving.
It's the only reference we have.
But it is the only reference we have. And I do think anybody that was an Urban disciple, and so, Mullen falls under that. Muschamp wasn't an Urban disciple, but Muschamp cared about special teams. Like it wasn't just Urban. Zook cared about special teams. Florida has a history of really great special teams. And so I think that made it harder for fans to swallow this past staff because it truly was an afterthought. And I think at the beginning I thought, okay, maybe they think there's so much work to be done on offense and defense that like it'll take a year or two before we have the time to turn to special teams. But it never became a priority. Nobody ever really took accountability for it. And then we were told things like, hey, we actually are one of the best special teams in the country if you take away, the mistakes, essentially, because they would say like if they would point to stats that would not keep track of pre-snap penalties or penalties that negated the play at all. And that's really not fair. But I love to hear that it's going to be a competition, that they're going to put an emphasis on special teams, that more coaches are going to be involved, because I do think the attitude comes from the top. If you place a priority on special teams as a head coach, the rest of your players will too. I heard things from players from this past team that would say like, well, nobody wants to play special teams. So, it's not something that anybody of us really care about. that comes from the top. When Urban coached there, his special teams players, the punt team ate first at meals. And that wasn't just like
the champions, all the champions did. Yeah.
Yes. But like if he were to say, okay, this table line up,
sure.
he would send punt team first. Yeah. And, you know, your way onto the field and any other, you know, team came from making an impact on special teams first. Think about like David Nelson. And that was how
his whole career. That's how you made it.
Tells the story about how David would come to him every week and be like, how do I play? How do I play? And he'd be like, you break into the starting lineup on special teams. And eventually that's what happened. And so it sounds like you're going to have more of that, not just on special teams, but like when you said you're going to be, you know, you have to fight for your job every single week. It's going to be earned every single week. I think that's music to some of our ears who have been around as long as, you know, the rest of us have, because that's when we win. It's because practices were competitive. It's because coaches cared about every single detail. Like there is a handbook that exists for winning at the University of Florida. We just haven't been reading out of it lately.
In
fairness
to Billy, they did have two excellent kickers, Smack and Crawshaw. And, you know, DK was a Pro Bowler this year, but that was only 1 year here. And Jamarcus Weston's actually the only guy in the Super Bowl, even though he won't play because of his gunner abilities. But, yeah, I didn't feel like there was many impactful plays on special teams. And the real impactful plays were the mistakes. If you go through the Billy Napier era, I mean, maybe the two most egregious things that happened were the 2 threes on the field at Utah and the end of the Arkansas game.
I was just going to say that very point. That I don't think you will see that under Sumrall.
That's where you lost Eric Wilbur, was the end of the Arkansas game. We never got him back.
He was
off the train. But, you know, for me, you don't have to look past the point that there was not a coach on the field counting to 11 on special teams. I've never seen that happen under any coaching staff we have. And Edgar, that would be a great question to ask in the press conference. Hey, who's responsible for making sure there's 11 people out there? Because I guarantee you there is an answer for a coach, and it's not one of the players is supposed to count. But I can never get past the fact that there's 3 people to hold your cup of coffee, but not a single person whose sole game day responsibility is getting the correct number of people on the field.
Well, Galante, the new special teams coach, is speaking on Friday. One other thing he said, buddy, that did catch my ear, and last thing, we don't need to keep beating up the former regime because it does get a little tiresome, and I almost feel guilty about it because Billy and his family are likable. But he said he came in here and he went from Troy at 18 people on staff, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's direct line of report. Tulane doubled the staff, walked in here, and there's 1 million people. And he goes, that doesn't really work for me. It was a little maybe too robust for my liking. Because he said if there are too many people, you're wondering what to do some of the time.
Or manageable.
Maybe. Yeah. And he goes, you should always know what you have to do. You should have more than you can do most of the time, like most people in jobs and things. Probably both of us, and the 3 of us included, you always have more things to do than you can keep up with. And that building, definitely you heard some things about maybe some people are rudderless over there with roles.
Yeah. That's an interesting quote to me because I could see where it would be tempting to be like, oh, this is awesome. My staff is so huge. I can hire my friends. I can do less work personally, whatever. And so I think that's really telling about the kind of leader he is, the kind of person he is, that he isn't taking advantage of the fact that he could have a staff however large he wants to, that he thinks
if you've ever been a manager, you know how hard it is. It takes every 5 people to one person to manage them, theoretically.
I think it's interesting. Is there, and I don't know the answer to this, so this is not like is there a world where your staff pool number is smaller and so therefore the money you have to spend elsewhere is larger? Like, I don't
know. Let me get this in real fast. The NCAA's denied Trinidad Chambliss' 6-year waiver. Denied it. So There you go, denied the way with this little news. Tony Barnhart's coming up on the other side here, too. I want to remind you folks, if you would, when you're listening and watching, like and share this. Along the way, I'm going to do a quick commercial. Also, I'm going to leave you this question, too, to pontificate on. We come back. I know that sometimes we get accused of having our head in the clouds and getting all, slobbery about the Gators. The fact is, I love the Maya Angelou quote about a long time after you left the earth, people will remember more about how you made them feel than what you said. And I wanted to say that just as we judge this along the way, without jumping to any conclusions, I love to watch the reaction to the new coaches. And you can see it now with the comments and questions that the people who are still waiting to see, obviously. Today, you can see he won them over big time. One guy said, hey, they taught him how to speak to Gator fans, and I think that I come away feeling an edge of excitement and wonderment. And obviously, as he pointed out, there's some holes to fill, particularly on the offensive and defensive lines. But I would say I give him an A+ for this press conference today, and an A+ for his start at Florida. Give me your quick reaction, guys. What do you think, Tony? I mean,
Go ahead, Ollie.
Edgar.
I think he gets an A, and now granted, I think how you do prior to the season is about 20% of your grade. So this is a formative, not a summative or whatever. But so far, so good. I think he's saying the right things, and it feels like, maybe this is just me being hopeful, but it feels like he's taking the time to understand what makes Gator Nation tick. And I think that all of the most successful coaches have done that. You're not coming here to fix Florida. You're coming here to return it to the glory that it has had before and that it is capable of having again. And I think letting that come across to fans is huge.
Edgar?
I thought he was excellent. If we're grading on a curve, he gets an A+. Look, he again, I said it at the beginning, he doesn't shy away from any topic, any subject. He includes some wit. He's got a force of personality. He's articulate. He's confident. I mean, he's what you want. I mean, he comes across like a leader. You talk to people. They love playing for him. But he's going to demand. And that's what I talked to a couple of people at Buster Faulkner, as I said. Same thing. Players love him, but he demands. Players that are successful want to be, they love a coach who demands of them. The ones who aren't successful, we don't hear about anyway. So it's, or maybe you do grousing or whatever, they leave. But he is going to, he's got a presence. And it's good to see. All great coaches have that. The first time I saw Urban Meyer in person, it was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like instantly, you could just tell. And he's got a lot of that. The guy he quoted was G.K. Chesterton.
Yeah, what was that book?
He was a writer. He wasn't a soldier. A
he
general.
Wasn't. I thought he was. Really? Okay.
But he said a true soldier doesn't fight for what's across for him, but he fights for what's behind him. And he wants this to be connected.
I remember now. Yes.
That's what he's working on.
He looks forward, not behind. Yeah.
Well, he's trying to get that connection built right now. Rusty Witt's kind of steering that ship. Yeah. But, Sumrall is going to certainly be involved every step of the way.
No doubt. Here's Tony Barnhart. We're going to say hello. We're going to do a quick commercial and bring Tony into the conversation about all this Gator talk, some news today. We just heard the story about the news out of Ole Miss, what's happening there, and we'll do this. Let's give our commercial. Tomorrow night we have our second basketball show, and Jeffrey Meldon's Gator Hoopla tomorrow night. We'll be sure and joining. Of course, Meldon Law is our primary sponsor, has been for a long time. We love what they do with the university and the fact that they're so involved in so many other things, particularly the sports program, one of the world-class events they put on when they gave 10,000 replica rings out for the national championship. That's just what they do. And he loves every minute of it. Tune in tomorrow night and listen to Jeffrey Meldon. He'll have some stories. He's always got great stories tomorrow night right here on the Buddy Martin Show. Let's get right back to the business of news and Mr. College Football. Tony, you're survived the first couple of days of spring, and we got one more year to go before you retire. You're not going to retire. You can't leave us like this.
Well, I've been tell you the truth, I've been having a lot of fun. I've watched the Netflix special on the U.S. hockey team not once but twice.
Yeah, that's great.
It is a great piece of work, and I would highly recommend it to you. But just one word of warning: find your tissues before you go.
Yeah, I was in that event, and I was there for it, and it was a big part of my life. And it was emotional for me, obviously, but it's emotional for anybody. It's a great story. It's really it might be the greatest upset in the history of sports, above everything else. Anyway, yeah. So Tony, what do you think about Trinidad Chambliss?
I said before this that it would have so much impact. Ole Miss's football team looks completely different now that we know he's not going to play. They're a top 5 team with him playing. I don't think they're a top 5 team without him. Mm-hmm. So we will see how it turns out. But that's they won't say it, but Ole Miss is going to be very disappointed.
Yeah. Now we're spending a lot of time today talking about the press conference today, his first full one, and I must say his press conferences go, and I've been to a few of them and covered a few of them. Edgar and I and Allie was not there, but we talked about this was impressive. Edgar's not easily impressed because he's a grizzly veteran, of the beat. And
I don't know about that,
but I think we came away running. What are you hearing from your position up in Georgia? By the way, so sorry about the people who lost their jobs today at Atlanta Journal-Constitution. 50, wasn't it, Tony?
50.
They laid off
50 out of the newsroom, yeah.
And then, of course, with the Washington Post closing its sports section, I don't know who among you had read my column. Probably none of you. I wrote it over the weekend.
It was great. Yeah, I read it. It was fantastic. I replied.
Yeah, yes, you did. Thank you, Edgar. I'm not begging for compliments, but I didn't want. I really almost didn't write it for fear nobody cared. And I wrote it, and I'm just overwhelmed by the response from people I got. I got a call yesterday, guy I hadn't talked to in 15 years. He's the voice of the New York Yankees now. And he just told me thank you and Dave Sims, he worked with me at the Daily News, and he went to broadcasting. And there are people like this I'm hearing from. And I got this, and I hate to change subject in midstream, but Tony will appreciate this, is that, I got one comment today that was sort of neutral, the first one I've gotten. And he said, what would you say if I said to you, it was time to move on? And that basically newspaper says outlived their usefulness and, et cetera. I said, look, I'm not trying to save journalism. I know I can't, but I am like to recognize I would like to lament the loss of it because it does mean something, doesn't it, guys?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, guys, is that people rarely talk about this, but think about, 50 gone at the AJC newsroom, New York Times, Washington Post. Where does all that institutional knowledge go? I mean, you can't replace that institutional knowledge and not have the reader's going to go. And Buddy, you and I have talked about this. The readers are not stupid. Okay, they know when their product is being watered down in front of them. But this is some of the financial realities that they deal with. But I don't accept that. Well, it's time to move on. We're always going to need good reporters, good writers. We're always going to need that. The question is, what kind of form is it going to take? And I'm really, really sad to hear about what's happening to my business.
Yeah, and I must say, not every journalist, cut their teeth on the Tampa Tribune, St. Pete Times, Orlando Sentinel, or whatever, or Journal-Constitution. Although I did work there once, but there's something about people. It's more than that. I would look at Allie. Allie is as much a journalist as most people I know. Yes, she doesn't write for a newspaper. And, when the column this morning, I guess our duty is, Tony and also Edgar, like we said, is to show up and say what happened and say what's important, right?
Yep.
And that kind of like what the job of the town crier used to be. You show up and you never know what's going to happen, and then say what happened and tell us what's important. And I don't know, what's the number one thing we're going to miss if journalism dies out? Edgar, what do you think?
Some people want to. There are many different mediums now to get your news, your insights, perspectives. Podcasting, I think, is great. Something like this format, what Allie does, I like all of it. But some people do like to read, and I try to go capture, like today. What I did was more trying to capture like a topic and bring a lot together in one piece, and you can get a lot in 800 words that way, maybe. But do people want to digest it that way? The numbers say no, that not as many people are interested in getting like that anymore, but I still think there are enough that do. So I think they might be a vocal minority. But we are to blame for some of this. We didn't recognize the power of the internet. We try to charge for things more. We charge for a product with, as Tony pointed out, probably less institutional knowledge across the staff. The product's smaller, it costs more, and people are watching their dollars. And it's a tough sell to some people. I'm grateful. 35 years now I've been doing daily journalism as of this last fall. So I'm blessed, and I hope to keep doing it. My friend Rick Mace, who's terrific, was at the Sentinel for a while. He's at the Washington Post, was spared. He's in Italy right now for the Olympics. His job will take on a different approach, but it'll still be storytelling. And there are a lot of great stories. You give people time. They want to tell their stories. And if you present it in a way that's interesting, I think people will read. It's what I strive to do. I mean, it's still working to a degree, maybe not like it once did, but there is still an audience out there for it. I'll end on this. Chris Berman said years ago, the two best bargains in the going are a stamp and a newspaper, but this was in the 90s, before email, which changed the stamp, and before newspapers started to shed staff, resources, and continue to shrink while going up in price. But you used to be able to pick up a newspaper for $1, a Sunday paper, and board a flight in Denver and fly to New York, and you still weren't finished it by the time you got there. So it used to be a great value, and it was. I still will appreciate it and hope people continue to do so.
Hard to get that paper anymore, but yeah, you're right. You used to go out the New York Times read for 3 days when I was over in New York. And Allie, I know you had a natural inkling for it. You were a teenage girl and you were pasting articles on the wall of your room about the Gator.
Yeah.
Are you still doing it now? I didn't know that.
No, I don't still do it as much anymore. Although I will tell you, my office still has a bunch of headlines. There's a Tampa Tribune that I'm looking at on the wall from 1996. Gainesville Sun from last year, national championship. I think that the whole beauty of journalism is that ordinary people feel like better writers, communicators than them have been able to put into words what an event has made them feel. And that's the beauty of journalism. I can remember being a 10-year-old girl and crying reading some of these articles after a game because it exactly summed up how that win or loss made me personally feel. And, and we can try and do that with videos and podcasts and different stuff. But for me, being able to read the thing over and over again, fold it up, tuck it inside a book, pull it back out later, like there was a value in that. There's a memory tied to that there just isn't with a podcast. I'm going to go search it, and try and find it again if I want to relive the moment. It's just not the same to me as having that book or having that newspaper or, whatever. And it does make me sad that my kids don't relate to that in the same way. I would run out to get the Sunday paper every week, especially in the fall, because I wanted to be the first one that got to read all of the articles. And, trying to explain that to them is like, I might as well, explain to them that I lived on another planet, before they were born. Like they don't, it's not a concept that they understand. But I also kind of think it's made everybody dumber. Like there is, I learned vocabulary words that I had hadn't heard before because I read a newspaper every day. They're just, my knowledge base expanded because I was exposed to great writers every single day. And it does make me sad that like the younger generations are searching the 30-second dopamine hit on TikTok that's going to summarize the game in 5 seconds in a computer voice instead of, beautifully written and thoughtfully crafted articles.
Well said. And there's something about, there are certain people like Dan Jenkins was magical. The way he wrote, Tony, we remember well. Just the stuff on the Masters alone. It's so good. And there's another experience to be had. You go to the game, watch the game, but then you read the story crafted by someone who knows how to get you into it, how to push your buttons. It's just a great experience. And, a guy that wasn't regarded as a great journalist, but someone who was everywhere and did everything was Tom McEwen. You mentioned the Tampa Tribune. McEwen was he was Mr. Tampa. I know I went up against him at the St. Pete Times. And, those guys, those kind of people in the community, they were the lighthouse for us. They're the ones who showed us the way. And Tony, you had certainly there in Furman Bisher, a giant of a man who could still pick it and write like a song in his 80s and did so beautifully. And Edgar, I know you had some favorites as well. I just love Jenkins. I can make a case for him being the greatest sports writer who ever lived.
Well, what we can't lose, guys. I know everybody's looking for the clickbait and all that kind of stuff. What we can't do is lose the art of storytelling, because at the end of the day, we're all storytellers, and I think people like a good story, and so we've still got to find a way to hold on to that.
How do we tell a story? How, if someone's tuning in here and saying, okay, I hear you, I want to be a good storyteller, what do I do? There's a good place to start. First you have to know what the story is, right? Mm-hmm. You have to understand.
Sometimes you don't. Like Buster Faulkner, for example, I spoke to two people from his Valdosta background. He was the backup to this guy, Dusty Bonner. I talked to Dusty just a bit ago, and his brother, John. They're both contemporaries of Kirby Smart, because that staff, when he arrived, Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp were on the Valdosta staff.
Right.
Mid-20s, both of them. And so he had to go up against that defense for 2 years, Buster, with Kirby calling it, 1 year with Will calling it. But you talk to these guys and you find out about the guy. I didn't know about this guy very much. I didn't realize how relentless a competitor he was. I didn't realize he was going to be 5'9" or 10 when he stood at the podium until I talked to John Bonner last night. And you just find out how this kid came up and turned into who he is now as a man, and where his philosophies rooted. And I would think a fan would be kind of curious about the person that the University of Florida hired that created such a buzz on a depth below, looking at collegefootballstats.com and seeing what the offenses he coached produced. So I think there's stories. Everyone has a story. Not to use a cliche. I think it's maybe different than I just expressed it, but it is. Everyone has a story they want to tell. This Abado, how do you say Ajabado? This Emmanuel A, as I'll call him for now. This guy's like from England, and they did a Zoom call with his parents in England, and only coaching staff, I guess, of the ones pursuing him that did. This young man's going to have a totally different tale to tell. Nigerian parents living in Manchester, England, who's found his way to Gainesville, Florida via Jacksonville State. That's, to me, that's compelling.
He's a dude.
More than just his 247 profile.
Tony, you know about this guy?
No, I hadn't heard. No.
6'6", 303, less than 10% body fat, and he can bend. Now he's raw. But this is a guy, who could play himself into a pretty impactful player, if not a NFL draft pick. So a high one. I'm just saying there's stories, all these guys, every one of them, all these young women who compete. I wish I could tell all these stories. You just don't have time, because you are required to produce stuff people are clicking on too, and immediacy matters and all these things,
Yeah.
which is fine. You just have to juggle and plan. But there are a lot of good stories out there, and I strive to tell, stories on this beat best I can. But it's a challenge because of the demands of the job and what it's become.
Yeah, storytelling stuff. By the way, RIP to our friend Philip Marshall, who passed away last week. I knew his daddy really well. You did too, Tony. And we lose him really
Is
fast.
he the Auburn writer?
Yes.
Yeah.
I sat across him at the Final Four last year.
Mhm.
He died, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, we were sitting at this corner of a table together. Okay.
Yeah. Good
I'm
dude.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah. We're losing a lot of them. But anyway, there's a certain joy in it. I've always kind of looked at the press box as like the Sistine Chapel, when you go in there. And when you're like 25 and you walk in there to these gods of journalism and you're sitting in the same row with Tom McEwen or Furman Bisher and whatever. My favorite's George Smith's story, late George Smith, who's a skywriter from Alabama, tells a story about writing. And in the old days, if you didn't know this, Tony, you would know it. Allie, probably not. And Edgar, you heard it. You didn't have the computer screen just to wipe it away. You typed it, and if it wasn't any good, you threw it in the garbage. Okay, you threw the piece of paper away. So my friend's telling the story. He's up in Auburn someplace. Been a great game, and he's writing his story, and he's trying to come up with something halfway decent. And Furman Bisher was sitting down in the front row, and he watched Bisher, and he started typing. Well, this might be pretty good. And he typed in. He sees Bisher throw away one sheet, two sheets, three sheets, four sheets, just trying to get his lead on the football game. Okay, and this was not unusual for people like this. Kind of get it so it's worthy. And he said they're writing. He said, "Damn," he's having a hard time. He says, "There's better stuff in that trash can than I could ever write." So it was. I mean, you can't believe how much you used to bleed to get those leads written, and that's what makes it such a great craft. Anyway, I know people think we're crazy, but it is a beautiful thing to see a story. To read a Dan Jenkins Sports Illustrated piece after a Masters was a true joy. And it is changing. The business is changing. But you're right, Edgar. It's still about telling stories. Speaking of which, what are the best stories right now in college football? Certainly, we can get lost in lawyer land in a hurry. There's so many regulations. There's so much information. It's just, I just read an article on the 50 new faces that Florida Gators have got on their roster. I'm sure you've seen it, Edgar. I mean, there's so much information to process,
right?
And it's also just to get who do you call to get the information, and how it's unbelievable what do you do to use it, Edgar? You got to be overwhelmed a little sometimes.
Yeah, you can't try to be all encompassing. At least I don't try to be. Some people want that, and there's places to get that. Yeah. But again, find some good stories, introduce some people to some of the guys and young women, in this athletic department that interest you, that you think will interest them, and that's all you can really strive to do.
Yeah.
There's a genius to great sports writers, and I'm talking like the legends, like Bill Lyon. You remember him, the Philadelphia Inquirer?
Very well. I used to sit next to him at the Masters.
All right, so this guy, I think he had a 900-word, column to write. And they said he would file his column, never missed a deadline ever, writing columns on deadline, and it was never 898 or 902 words is 900, and just would deliver it. I mean, that is some high-pressure performing, man. That's
another note about him,
like
the old press box, it was had the round, remember, Tony, the Quonset hut at Augusta, where in the attic, the attic was curved. If you sat on the end, you had to kind of squeeze in. Bill Lyon sat on the attic like this. We all said, you probably walk around like this all day because that's how he typed. Wonderful. So, Allie, what are you teaching your girls about telling stories?
Well, it's interesting because they're in the state of Florida public school, there is a speech contest in 4th and 5th grade. It's called the Tropicana Speech Contest. And this is going on right now. My girls are in 5th grade, and my daughter Hadley came to me and she was like, Mom, I picked my speech topic. And I was like, oh, okay, great. What is it? Last year she did the importance of voting. But this year she did why NIL is ruining college football.
Oh,
And Eric and I kind of looked at each other, and I was like, okay, let me hear where you're going with this. And, it's a 5th grade writing, but she's talking about how it's going to make it harder for people to play for each other because they're worried about their own money and they're comparing themselves to the person next to them instead of fighting for the person next to them. And it was just so interesting to watch, this kind of transpire over the last few weeks, because she had to submit the topic a few weeks ago and she's been working on it, and they're supposed to work at it only at school. So they're not really supposed to get input from parents. And I've asked her, like, do you want to practice in front of me? I can help you with this. And she does not want my input on this topic at all, which, I'm like, I could actually help you with this, but okay. But I find it so interesting that they see the dangers in this too, I guess. And they're younger and they clearly listen to us talk about it enough in the house. But and my other daughter, Hayden, is an incredible writer, and she does a really good job like eliciting really strong emotions from people when they read what she writes. And she's very into poetry. So, we're trying to encourage that, because this is how you communicate. I think that is the hardest part of this parenting this generation, is that they're used to, like, let me pick up my phone, like, communicating like this. They are not used to face-to-face contact, making eye contact, relaying how you're feeling through the pitch of your voice and showing emotion. And I despise that. I will not raise children that cannot communicate one-on-one with adults. And
Sunday brunch is tough at your house, I bet.
say that again?
Sunday brunch probably be tough at your house.
Yes, like we joke that like this is 80s parenting in this house, because you can climb the top of the tree, and if you fall, you'll learn your lesson, and you're not allowed a laptop or a phone or anything else at the table. And like my 5th graders swear they're the only ones in the world without a phone, and like, too bad, you got tough parents. I don't know, like you'll get one when you drive a car. I don't know what to tell you. But I think communication is becoming a lost art. And so whether it's through writing, whether it's through speaking, these are such important life skills that in their generation are going to set them apart, because nobody can do it anymore.
All right. So in the final minutes we got, I'm giving you each homework assignment here. You got 2 minutes apiece. And that is to say, where are you with AI? Have you used it at all? Would you use it? Is it changing things for the better or the worse? Is it a new tool you could have in your toolkit to use, like Google, that you didn't have 15 years ago? Who wants to go first?
I'd like to hear if Tony's using it.
Well, no. I mean, and here's the thing. Now, my wife has used it to do some agendas and some reports to what they call polish it, polish it and all that. I don't know. It just doesn't seem right to me that I should write my column and let somebody else improve it or polish it, and that just doesn't ring true with me. Now, stuff that's not news related and stuff like just your
letter or
something like I got that, but I can't submit that and said I wrote it, but I let AI polish it for you.
What's the difference in that and an editor?
Well, an editor is a human being that I can deal with. Well, I may come around on this, but my first
I'm just asking the questions. I don't know. I'm just getting everybody's opinion. That's fair enough. Okay, Edgar, you want to follow that?
I mean, I'm not opposed to AI. I'm not leaning into AI. I'd like the challenge of crafting a story. I mean, it's kind of an exhilarating and intense process. And the way deadlines have changed now, I mean, our deadlines are really early now, which is another way we're alienating readers, because our print product still is our main revenue driver, which is crazy. The harder we lean in on the digital product, the print product is still the one that makes the most money.
Interesting.
So it does. Well, yeah. And I think that's the case at a lot of places that still have a print newspaper every day.
Apparently not in Washington, apparently.
Well, I mean, we can
No,
get into the whole debate of does a guy who's worth $200 billion need to like save money,
I'm just,
or does like the
being
Cox heiress?
Yeah.
They're worth like $12 billion. That family, they really need to be making cuts to say
Yeah.
for what? But I mean, I was caught up in the whole Cox ecosystem, and it didn't turn out great. So, but the point being, I mean, it's a great challenge, and it's also very enlivening to like produce something and then you read it after you filed it or whatever, and it's like, yeah, that's, it flowed nicely or whatever, and
you don't have to use it.
Good day's work.
All right, Allie, in the final couple of minutes here, you had Google when you're going to do a piece, you want to research it. You don't necessarily have to use it, but you go and tell me all you got on the left tackle from Florida in 1984, and you use Google and you gather information, you put it together. And what's the difference in something like that and asking Grok, say, give me take this story I've written about the Alabama Crimson Tide in 1978 and make it sound more like a Southern sports writer. What's the difference in that to you, Allie?
I think I'm not a huge AI fan. And part of that is, as a parent, that's something really hard to regulate for children. But the people that do this for a profession have a gift. And if everybody can just go online and use a tool, I think it devalues that gift, and so I have a problem with it from that point of view. I think the difference between Google and a Grok or ChatGPT or something like that is, if I'm pulling up articles and reading them myself and pulling out the details that I find are important to incorporate them in a story that I am writing, that is research, in my opinion. Giving some prompts to an AI and having them write a piece for me is very different, in my opinion. Now, if you want to use ChatGPT and say, hey, can you pull up a list of Heisman winners that are left-handed for me? I mean, maybe I can see where that's being used as research, but it's not the same as polishing your piece, in my opinion, or writing a piece with some details that you give it. I think it devalues the work that we do if it is used too much, and that scares me. And I think it's dumbing down a generation of kids who need to know how to appropriately research things and write them on their own, and come into writer's blocks and dead ends and need to walk away and then come back to it. Like we are doing away with building resiliency when we use shortcuts.
I'll leave you with this. I got to go. Plagiarism. What would you say if I told you there was one well-known Florida columnist in sports, well-known, who so many times, more often than not, when he wrote a national column on something else, he called that paper in Philadelphia or Detroit or Cleveland and asked them to send him copies of these columns, and took stuff out of those columns and used them and without giving credit. How would you feel about that? Not very good. Like they say, again, I guess
against the rules.
I guess if you did it to two papers, it's okay, because, like they say, if you steal from one, it's plagiarism. If you steal from two, it's research, right?
Who was the left tackle in Florida in 1984?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm the worst guy in the world to ask it. Allie would be better at that than me.
It was Lomas Brown or David Williams, I think, right?
Okay, well, see, I'll leave that to you. Guys, you were great tonight. Thank you so much. Good conversation. Thank you, Edgar. Thank you, Tony, for jumping in there and add to it. And Allie, always nice to have you on Wednesday night. Great job, folks. And let's do it again one day soon, all right? Take care. Here's the AI. Thank you. All right. Edgar Thompson, Tony Barnhart, Allie Peak Wilbur, all-star lineup, as somebody said. Certainly is. I want to round out the night by thanking our sponsors. Once again, you heard us from Meldon Law. Don't forget, tomorrow night is Jeffrey Meldon's new show, Gator Hoopla. Brought to you also tonight by our friends at Titan MRI and Imaging. Can't tell you enough good things about these people. They got your interest at heart. They're very customer service oriented. They have now 3 locations to serve you, 2 in Gainesville and 1 coming in Ocala if it's not there already. They have at the Millennium Center and one in Lake City serving all of Columbia County and Valdosta. Titan MRI Imaging, remember that. Offer the same great customer service. They're the best at that. They do it really well. And they'll get you a night appointment if you can't make the day. Who does that? They accept insurance, or you can go through their convenient self-pay program. They offer MRIs, CAT scans, X-rays, ultrasounds, and they have, this is a key feature, they have the large MRI machines for your patient comfort, no ERs, no hospitals, and as I say, Titan MRI Imaging is your choice. I want to thank our guests tonight. Good show. Enjoy these kind of intimate shows we can have some good conversations about. Thank you folks for listening, and thanks for watching. And don't forget, we're back here tomorrow night on the Buddy Martin Show. And if you get a chance, check out GatorMateMedia.com. It's a good publication. You get a lot of inside stuff. It's a place you want to go to read good stuff. So have a good night, folks.